Dhammapada verse 53, Visakha with 2. The story of Visakha. While residing at the Buddharama monastery in Savatthi, the Buddha uttered verse 53 of this book, with reference to Visakha, the famous donor of the Buddharama monastery. Visakha was the daughter of a rich man of Pattaya named Dhanansiya and his wife Sumana Devi, and the granddaughter of Medaka, one of the 5 extremely wealthy men of King Bimbisara's dominions. When Visakha was 7 years old, the Buddha came on a tour to Pattaya. On that occasion, the rich man Medaka took Visakha and her 500 companions with him to pay homage to the Buddha. After hearing the discourse given by the Buddha, Visakha, her grandfather, and all her 500 companions attained Sotapaddi fruition. When Visakha came of age, she married Punyavadana, son of Migara, a fairly rich man from Savatthi. One day, while Migara was having his meal, a bhikkhu stopped for alms at his house, but Migara completely ignored the bhikkhu. Visakha, seeing this, said to the bhikkhu, "I am sorry, your reverence. My father-in-law only eats leftovers." On hearing this, Migara flew into a rage and told her to leave his house. But Visakha said she was not going away, and that she would send for the 8 elderly rich men, who were sent by her father to accompany her and to advise her. It was for them to decide whether she was guilty or not. When the elders came, Migara said to them, "While I was having my rice with milk in a golden bowl, Visakha said that I was taking only dirt and filth. For this offense, I am sending her away." Thereupon, Visakha explained as follows. "When I saw my father-in-law completely ignoring the bhikkhu standing for alms food, I thought to myself that my father-in-law was not doing any meritorious deed in this existence. He was only eating the fruits of his past good deeds. So, I said, my father-in-law only eats leftovers. Now, sirs, what do you think? Am I guilty?" The elders decided that Visakha was not guilty. Visakha then said that she was one who had absolute and unshakable faith in the teaching of the Buddha, so could not stay where the bhikkhus were not welcome. And also that if she was not given permission to invite the bhikkhus to the house to offer alms food and make other offerings, she would leave the house. So permission was granted to her to invite the Buddha and his bhikkhus to the house. The next day, the Buddha and his disciples were invited to the house of Visakha. When alms food was about to be offered, she sent word to her father-in-law to join her in offering food, but he did not come. When the meal was over, again she sent a message, this time requesting her father-in-law to join her in hearing the discourse that would soon be given by the Buddha. Her father-in-law felt that he should not refuse for a second time. But his ascetic teachers, the Niganthas, would not let him go. However, they conceded that he could listen from behind a curtain. After hearing the Buddha's discourse, Migara attained Sotapaddi fruition. He felt very thankful to the Buddha and also to his daughter-in-law. Being so thankful, he declared that henceforth Visakha would be like a mother to him, and Visakha came to be known as Migara Mata. Visakha gave birth to 10 sons and 10 daughters, and 10 sons and 10 daughters each were born to every one of her children and grandchildren. Visakha possessed an immensely valuable gem-encrusted cloak given by her father as a wedding present. One day, Visakha went to the Jitavana monastery with her entourage. On arrival at the monastery, she found that her bejeweled cloak was too heavy. So she took it off, wrapped it up in her shawl, and gave it to the maid to hold it and take care of it. The maid absent-mindedly left it at the monastery. It was the custom for the Venerable Ananda to look after the things left by any one of the lay disciples. Visakha sent the maid back to the monastery, saying, "Go and look for the bejeweled cloak. But if the Venerable Ananda had already found it and kept it in a place, do not bring it back. I donate the bejeweled cloak to the Venerable Ananda." But the Venerable Ananda did not accept her donation. So Visakha decided to sell the bejeweled cloak and donate the sale proceeds. But there was no one who could afford to buy that bejeweled cloak. So Visakha bought it back for 9 crores and 1 lakh. With this money, she built a monastery on the eastern side of the city. This monastery came to be known as Poparama. After the libation ceremony, she called all her family to her, and on that night she told them that all her wishes had been fulfilled and that she had nothing more to desire. Then, reciting 5 verses of exaltation, she went round and round the monastery. Some bhikkhus hearing her thought she was singing and reported to the Buddha that Visakha was not like before and that she was going round and round the monastery singing. Could it be that she had gone off her head? They asked the Buddha. To this question, the Buddha replied, "Today, Visakha had all her wishes of the past and present existences fulfilled, and on account of that sense of achievement, she was feeling elated and contented." Visakha was just reciting some verses of exaltation. She certainly had not gone off her head. Visakha, throughout her previous existences, had always been a generous donor and an ardent promoter of the doctrine of successive Buddhas. She was more strongly inclined to do good deeds, and had done much good in her previous existences. Just as an expert florist makes many garlands from a collection of flowers. Then the Buddha spoke in verse as follows. Verse 53. As from a collection of flowers many a garland can be made by an expert florist, so also much good can be done with wealth out of faith and generosity by one subject to birth and death.